Bonjour Nilam, bonjour à tous. Jagdish, Joypal, bonjour.
Bonjour Nawaz, Nilam, bonjour, auditeurs et internautes, bonjour.
Donc, reprise des travaux parlementaires ce matin avec la private notice question du leader de l'opposition, Xavier Duval, puis intéressé au dossier Chagos ce mardi matin. Il a envie de connaître auprès du Premier ministre coûte ben négociation avec le gouvernement britannique fin arrivée en ce qui concerne le retour des Chagos sous le contrôle de Maurice.
Alors donc également, Xavier Duval demande à Pravin Jagnat, le Premier ministre, indique non ban Dimoun qui représente le gouvernement mauricien et le gouvernement du Royaume-Uni de la Grande-Bretagne dans sa bonne négociation-là. Alors il est nécessaire de situer l'importance d'une telle question. C'est qu'en novembre 2022, donc l'année passée, ministre Affaires étrangères de l'Angleterre, c'est-à-dire M. James Cleverly, qui a annoncé que négociation peut commencer avec le gouvernement mauricien lors l'avenir l'archipel des Chagos. Et le Premier ministre, dans sa déclaration à l'occasion du Nouvel An, qui confirme ce que le ministre britannique a annoncé et lui dit qu'il paraît que la négociation pour l'accord paraît constructive. Donc, novembre 2022, annonce par l'Angleterre, et janvier 2023, c'est Pravin Jagnat qui confirme la négociation. Aujourd'hui, 6 mois après, Xavier Duval, ou les connaît exactement Nawaz, côte négociation était qui ban membres qui fait partie de des deux pays, différentes délégations. Et là, d'un côté, nous constatons qu'il résultime au Parlement, tu peux dire, qui possiblement en l'Angleterre, tu peux envisager un référendum auprès de c'est-à-dire auprès de ban chagossiens qui éparpillés à travers le monde dans différents pays pour connaître s'ils ont envie qu'ils restent avec l'Angleterre ou bien simplement détachent, c'est-à-dire retournent les Chagos, l'archipel des Chagos et restituent-les au territoire mauricien. Alors là, c'est-à-dire une procédure judiciaire nous constater peut continuer depuis très longtemps. En 2019, aujourd'hui nous en 2023, alors FINENA, une revendication qui finit soutenir par la Cour internationale de justice, donc en 2019, et même l'année 2019, Nations Unies, ils votent une résolution pour reconnaître Chagos comme faire partie du territoire mauricien. Et depuis 1975, différents gouvernements ils continuaient, c'est-à-dire trouvent différents moyens légaux pour capable rétablir le Chagos, la situation. Et donc, ça va multiples négociations là, jusqu'à l'ère, presque bientôt 50 ans, pas encore abouti.
C'est donc parti pour la séance du jour.
Announcements none. Papers have been laid. Questions?
Mr. Speaker, my question is addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister. Whether in regard to the Chagos Archipelago, he will state where matters stand as to the negotiations initiated with the United Kingdom on the exercise of the sovereignty thereon by Mauritius, indicating the names of the persons representing the government of Mauritius and that of the United Kingdom, respectively.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall reply to this private notice question together with parliamentary questions B909 and B918 as they relate to the same subject matter. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me start my reply by paying tribute to the struggle led by late Sir Anirudh Jagnnath, former Prime Minister, which paved the way for the historic progress we have achieved so far as a nation for the exercise of our sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago. The House will recall his very passionate and emotional opening statement at the International Court of Justice in September 2018, which will remain a landmark in our fight for the complete decolonization of our territory. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House and the nation are aware, prior to our independence, the United Kingdom excised the Chagos archipelago from the territory of Mauritius in violation of international law and United Nations General Assembly resolutions, including Resolution 1514, number 15 of 14th of December 1960. In its efforts to complete the decolonization of Mauritius, and given the active role played by the United Nations General Assembly in the process of decolonization, Mauritius requested on 14th of July 2016 the inclusion in the provisional agenda of the 71st session of the General Assembly of an item entitled Request for an Advisory Opinion of the International Court of Justice on the legal consequences of the separation of the Chagos archipelago from Mauritius in 1965. This item was subsequently included in the agenda of the 71st session of the United Nations General Assembly, which was adopted on 16th of September 2016. Subsequently, on 22nd of June 2017, the General Assembly adopted by a majority of 94 votes to 15 Resolution 71/292 to request an advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 25th of February 2019, the International Court of Justice delivered an advisory opinion in which it determined that the process of decolonization of Mauritius was not lawfully completed upon its accession to independence in view of the illegal excision of the Chagos archipelago from Mauritius, and that the United Kingdom is under an obligation to bring to an end its administration of the Chagos archipelago as rapidly as possible. The court also determined that the United Kingdom's continued administration of the Chagos archipelago constitutes an unlawful act of a continuing character entailing the international responsibility of that state. On 22nd of May 2019, the United Nations General Assembly adopted by an overwhelming majority of 116 votes to 6 Resolution 73/295, which fully endorsed the determinations of the ICJ. In this resolution, the General Assembly, inter alia, affirmed that the Chagos archipelago forms an integral part of Mauritius and that the continued administration of the Chagos archipelago by the United Kingdom constitutes a wrongful act entailing the international responsibility of that state. The General Assembly accordingly demanded the United Kingdom to withdraw its colonial administration from the Chagos archipelago unconditionally within a period of no more than 6 months, that is, by 22nd of November 2019. The United Kingdom has failed to meet that deadline. The General Assembly also called upon the United Nations and its specialized agencies, as well as all other international, regional, and intergovernmental organizations, including those established by treaty, to recognize that the Chagos archipelago forms an integral part of the territory of Mauritius, to support the decolonization of Mauritius as rapidly as possible, and to refrain from impeding that process by recognizing or giving effect to any measure taken by or on behalf of the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory. Pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 73/295, the United Nations amended its official map in February 2020 to clearly depict the Chagos Archipelago as part of the territory of Mauritius. In the judgment, which it delivered on 28 January 2021, in the maritime delimitation case brought by Mauritius against Maldives, under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Special Chamber of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea held that the authoritative determinations made by the International Court of Justice in its advisory opinion of 25 February 2019 have legal effect and clear implications for the legal status of the Chagos Archipelago. It also ruled that Mauritius has undisputed sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago and that the United Kingdom's continued claim to sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago is contrary to the determinations made by the International Court of Justice, that the detachment of the Chagos Archipelago from Mauritius was unlawful, and that the United Kingdom's continued administration of the Chagos Archipelago constitutes an unlawful act of a continuing character. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 24 August 2021, the Universal Postal Union, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations, adopted by a majority of 77 votes to...
Does the Prime Minister think I would ask the PNQ so that he would read just at what he has read 10 times already in this Parliament? Does the Prime Minister think that this is the point of the PNQ, that he would read what he has read to us 10 times before?
May I continue to reply, Mr. Speaker, sir? So I was saying, on 24th of August 2021, the Universal Postal Union, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations, adopted by a majority of 77 votes to 6, a resolution which formally acknowledges that, for the purposes of its activities, the Chagos Archipelago forms an integral part of the territory of Mauritius. The resolution also instructs the International Bureau of the Universal Postal Union to cease the registration, distribution, and forwarding of any and all postage stamps issued by the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory. It is clear that, as a matter of international law, as authoritatively determined by the international courts and tribunals, the Chagos Archipelago forms an integral part of the territory of Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I met the Right Honourable Elizabeth Truss in her capacity as the UK Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs in November 2021 in Glasgow, in the margins of the 26th session of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, I lengthily discussed with her the issue of Chagos Archipelago. She undertook to look into the matter and the way forward. Subsequently, when the Right Honourable Elizabeth Truss became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, I met her on 21st September 2022 in New York in the margins of the United Nations General Assembly. During that meeting, I again discussed with her on how Mauritius and the United Kingdom could engage in discussions for the completion of the decolonization process of Mauritius. After further discussions and following the agreement of the United Kingdom that any agreement should be based on international law, Mauritius and the United Kingdom decided to begin negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago, as I had announced to the House on 3rd November 2022. Through negotiations, taking into account relevant legal proceedings, it is the intention of Mauritius and the United Kingdom to secure an agreement on the basis of international law to resolve all outstanding issues, including those relating to the former inhabitants of the Chagos archipelago. Mauritius and the United Kingdom have reiterated that any agreement between the two countries will ensure the continued effective operation of the joint UK-US military base in Diego Garcia. Since my statement of 3rd November 2022 to the House, Mauritius and the United Kingdom have held 4 rounds of negotiations on 23rd and 24th November 2022, 11th and 12th January 2023, 23rd and 24th February 2023, and 2nd and 3rd of June 2023, alternately in the UK and in Mauritius. These discussions have led to better understanding between the two sides and covered issues relating to the exercise of sovereignty by Mauritius over the Chagos archipelago, whilst ensuring the continued effective operation of the joint UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. Resettlement of the former inhabitants of the Chagos archipelago, strengthening our cooperation on a range of issues such as environmental and marine protection, improving security and tackling illegal activities in the region, amongst others. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 14th of February 2023, I spoke to the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. We welcomed the progress to date and agreed to pursue the negotiations with a view to arriving at an agreement in the coming month. The dates of the next round of negotiations are about to be finalized. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the wake of the unlawful excision of the Chagos archipelago from the territory of Mauritius, all the former inhabitants of the Chagos archipelago were forcibly removed by the United Kingdom in blatant violation of their basic human rights. Most of them were moved to Mauritius. Government is fully sensitive to their plight and supports their legitimate aspiration as Mauritian citizens to return and resettle in their place of birth. The ongoing struggle of Mauritius to complete its decolonization and the resettlement of Mauritian citizens, including those of Chagosian origin, are indissociable. Government is strongly committed to implementing a resettlement program in the Chagos archipelago. This commitment is enunciated in the government program 2020-2024 and has been reiterated by government on several occasions, including in this House and in international fora such as the United Nations. In this regard, the special provision of 50 million rupees made in the budget for financial year 2019-2020 has been maintained in the budget for subsequent financial years, including for 2023-2024, for meeting, inter alia, expenses relating to preparations for eventual resettlement in the Chagos archipelago. However, government is conscious of practical impediments to such resettlement, such as access to the islands of the Chagos archipelago, lack of basic infrastructure and services. Mr. Speaker, sir, in preparation of an eventual resettlement in the Chagos archipelago, ministries, departments concerned have already started the appropriate and necessary background work. Several ministries and departments have highlighted the need for on-site surveys to be carried out in the Chagos archipelago. For this reason, government proposes to organize another trip to the Chagos archipelago so that an assessment mission can be carried out on the requirements for a proper resettlement. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government of Mauritius has ensured the active involvement of the Chagosians in its efforts to facilitate their return to the Chagos archipelago and continues to do so. In this regard, government has been having regular consultations with the Chagosians based in Mauritius. Although the negotiations are between the governments of Mauritius and the United Kingdom, government will continue to hold consultations with the Chagosians and ensure that their rights are safeguarded. Mr. Speaker, sir, in view of the injustice suffered by members of the Chagosian community, some countries have expressed a willingness to support their resettlement. We expect the United Kingdom to cooperate with Mauritius in implementing a program for resettlement in the Chagos archipelago. This would not only be fair and just, but also provide an opportunity for the United Kingdom to make amends for the historic wrong that occurred. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Mauritius delegation to the negotiations is led by the Secretary to Cabinet and Head of Civil Service. The other members of the delegation are as follows: Ambassador J.D. Kunjal, the Permanent Representative of Mauritius to the United Nations, New York; Mr. N.K. Bala, Special Advisor, Prime Minister's Office; Mr. D.K. Debi, Legal Advisor, Consultant, Attorney General's Office; Ms. S.C. Yong Kim Fat, Minister Counselor, Prime Minister's Office; Professor Philip Sands, KC, Legal Advisor; and Mr. Paul Reichler, the Legal Advisor. However, should the topics being discussed so require, the composition of the Mauritius delegation may change. As for the UK delegation, it is currently made up of 7 senior officials duly mandated by the UK government. The number of members of the UK delegation can fluctuate depending on the topics covered. Mr. Speaker, sir, late Sir Anirudh Jagannath solemnly affirmed that he considered the struggle for Mauritius to exercise its full rights over the entirety of its territory as a sacred duty towards the nation. I fully subscribe to that statement, and as Prime Minister, I am pursuing that mission with utmost zeal and determination. I can state at this stage that we are making headway in the negotiations with the United Kingdom with a view to successfully fulfilling that sacred mission we have engaged into since 2014. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, let me also pay homage to all the deportees, their descendants, and remind the Prime Minister that the legal process with the appointment of Philip Sands in fact started in 2010 by the then government. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, I noticed that since January 20 of this year, he hasn't mentioned that the negotiations are going satisfactorily. This is why I want to ask him first, are you satisfied with the way the negotiations are going, and when do you expect to conclude the matter, being given that in November 2022, you and Mr. Cleverly both said that you expected the negotiations to be over and concluded by early of this year?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think everyone will realize that the issues that have to be discussed are not simple and straightforward. Some of them are quite complex and therefore requires time. In fact, when we started, We had to agree on the basis on which negotiations will start. Even that, I don't want to go into details. I just mentioned that my meeting in the margins of the United Nations General Assembly with the Right Honorable Elizabeth Truss, at that time Prime Minister, we had lengthy discussions on that issue, and we finally came to an agreement on the basis on which we shall start negotiations. Now, negotiations have started. A number of issues are on the table, and we are, I must say, we are making progress. Now, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition is asking me, I think when will negotiations be completed? I think he must have also, the same question has been put in the House of Commons by Jeremy Corbyn. And he asked the Minister, the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs, James Cleverly, when will negotiations be completed? And the answer was, I'm not able to give a date or a projected date of when we will conclude these negotiations. I have to repeat the same, because there are a lot of issues that have to be discussed and come to fruition. So it will take time that it has to take, but provided that we are making progress. So we'll see. There is a next round of negotiation. We have, first of all, to agree on the dates, because you can imagine that those people forming, from our side anyway, we have to try to see when we can get common dates, because we have our legal counsel who have other professional obligations as well. And then we have to get common dates from the UK side also. So let negotiations proceed. And as and when there are, of course, there are any matters that I have to report to the House, I will do so.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has taken 23 minutes so far of PNQ. I hope you will be indulgent in this respect of this very national issue. I'd like to ask the Prime Minister this question. Sovereignty has been granted to Mauritius unconditionally by the International Court of Justice. Therefore, can the Prime Minister be clear that we're also talking about sovereignty on the whole of the Chagos, including Diego Garcia?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have always been clear about this issue. And I am a bit surprised that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition is having some doubt. I have said repeatedly, wherever, on international fora, even in public functions, not later than a few days ago when we were commemorating the deportation, the last deportation of the Chagosians to Mauritius, I publicly stated in my speech that there are certain fundamental issues for Mauritius. One of them, of course, is the issue of sovereignty. We have a judgment from the International Court of Justice. We have a judgment from the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea endorsing the judgment of the International Court of Justice, which clearly states that the only country having sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago, and Chagos Archipelago, including Diego Garcia, is Mauritius. So I hope that it is as clear as that.
It's good to be clear. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, given that we have sovereignty on the whole of the Chagos, including Diego, therefore the base will be leased to the government of Mauritius. And I wish to remind the Prime Minister that the US are paying something like 3 billion rupees. Sorry, by the US, of course, as you understand. The US government is paying 3 billion rupees a year for a smaller, lesser base in Djibouti. Therefore, what is the quantum of compensation, rent, compensation to the Chagosians, resettlement fees that is presently on the table being asked by the government of Mauritius? My calculation, it should be above 50 billion rupees.
Okay, so I take note of the proposal of the leader of the opposition. 50 I heard, 50 billion rupees. Well, but Mr. Speaker, sir, we are not yet there. So when we are there, we will, of course, inform the House and Mauritius.
Resettlement of the Chagosians. The Prime Minister has much spoken about the KPMG report, which is a very full report. And that KPMG report, at 2014 prices, was giving something like 300 million rupees. No, 15 billion rupees, excuse me. 15 billion rupees for the proper settlement of the Chagosians. So can I ask the Prime Minister, therefore, the 50 billion is not a chiffre farfelu. It is an actual figure calculated carefully. And therefore, is the Prime Minister confirming that there is an amount for resettlement, for compensation, for rent, for back rent, that is being asked of the UK government? Just as the fact at the moment.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the KPMG report has proposed 3 options. Yeah? 3 options. But the options are based on a number of different indicators. I don't want to go into the detail of that report, but one of them being the number of people who are going to resettle there. Now, in one option it is 150, the other 500, approximately. In the other it's 1,500. So, and it is also based on whether there is going to be an airport meaning at least a landing strip, or there's going to be a harbor meaning again some breakwater or harbor facility like a jetty. And so there are different variables. And I don't want to mention any sum of money that has, any amount that has been earmarked at that time. But this is 2014 anyway. So this has to be, well, the leader of the opposition is saying much more based on what? We need to know. We need to know on what kind of infrastructure we want to build there. We need to know how many people eventually we will cater for resettlement. We need to know what are the facilities that have to be provided there. That is why we have started preliminary works in order to see eventually what kind of facility we want to be developed there. And we need to field a mission, as I've stated in my answer. We need to field a mission for those people, technical people, to carry out a survey and eventually to tell us, well, this is what can be done. And, you know, and I said also, we will most probably need the support of other countries. Some countries have already expressed their collaboration and their contribution to help us in this démarche for resettlement. And I have said, well, UK, we will be discussing with UK also to see how they can collaborate for facilitating this resettlement.
Mr. Speaker, the KPMG reports, obviously I don't think you're talking about resettling 150 people. That would be quite ridiculous. We're talking about resettling 1,500 people. Otherwise, what's the point? I'd like to ask our Prime Minister whether he's aware in the report that it talks of the only feasible way of doing that is to put them on the eastern side of Diego Garcia itself. Has that point been raised at the moment in the resettlement discussions that Mauritius, having sovereignty, would only lease western side and keep the eastern side for the Chagosians? That is also in the report.
The leader of the opposition is saying he's not talking about resettlement of 150 people. That is ridiculous. But he mentions about the KPMG report. The KPMG report talks about one option of resettling 150 people. So you know which is which. You should know what you want to refer as a document. Now, you're talking about resettlement on the island of Diego Garcia itself. Well, all this is a matter for discussion. I am not able to, at this juncture, to be able to give details about this discussion. I've said earlier that these discussions, we have agreed that it is only when we will come to a conclusion, when there is an agreement, that the details of those discussions will be communicated. So we'll see. It is a bit premature at this stage, when discussions are not over, to start talking about what has been said, what has been discussed, where we have reached.
I'd like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, I don't think that does he realize that the Mauritian population do not want to be left with a fait accompli. They want to know what is being discussed and what is going to be agreed in their name. I'd like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister this question. Honourable Prime Minister, this question. There is also the question of the double nationality of Chagosians. Many of them are attached to this. What is on the table for discussion concerning the double nationality of Chagosians? Will they be able to retain, obviously, the Mauritian citizenship, but also the UK citizenship? Is that something that Government Mauritius is discussing?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the Leader of the Opposition should be the last one to talk about fait accompli. Because look at all the progress that we have made, all the victories that have been achieved by government since 2014. Look, it is, for me, it is such an important issue that concerns the whole of the Republic of Mauritius. I don't want to mention what Philip Sands Casey said in an interview to L'Express on the former Prime Minister, because he made a remark and Philip Sands had to correct him. So let us not go into that debate, and let us not make politics out of this. For me, what is important is that we are able, and we are moving forward. We are making, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are making tremendous progress on this issue. Tremendous progress, with victories at the International Court of Justice, the United Nations General Assembly, the resolutions that have been voted, with a majorité écrasante, and the judgment of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, where it has demarcated the maritime boundary between Mauritius and Maldives, based on the fact that Mauritius has full sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago. And this judgment has to be respected by all countries. It is binding on all countries. And that is a final judgment. No one can question that again. So look at the headway we are making, the progress that we have made so far. And now, with regard to resettlement, I have said earlier, and I repeat again, that all Chagosians will be able to, those who want to resettle, will be able to resettle according, of course, to the laws of Mauritius.
The question that I asked specifically was on double nationality, not on resettlement. We've canvassed that before. Let me ask the question this time. What is the situation? What is the position of the government of Mauritius with regard to asking the UK government to maintain the double nationality facilities that the Chagosians presently have? And since I've just repeated the question before, and also tell us, since the Prime Minister is saying we are making fantastic progress, and we will know that in the negotiations, tell us whether he has a resettlement plan in the coming weeks and months so that we can start thinking of how the Chagosians will be resettled.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition should not try to confuse people. What I said is fantastic progress about our fight to get sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago. This is what I said. Do I need to recall to you the ICJ judgment, the UN resolution, the ITLOS? This is what I said. Fantastic progress. If you don't call that fantastic progress, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't know what is the progress that we are making then. Anyway, let me come back. Let us not waste time. Let me come back to the question. Anyone having a Mauritian nationality, and for that matter, it is not only Chagosians. Anyone having Mauritian nationality will be able to travel, to go to Chagos. Those who want to resettle will be able to resettle. What is the problem? Now, do I know who has a double nationality, triple nationality, or how many nationalities? Of course, anyone having Mauritian nationality will be able to resettle.
Mr. Speaker, I think the worst possible outcome would be for the whole of the Chagosians settled in the UK to be somehow shipped back to Mauritius or to Chagos. This is why, if he has at heart the interest of the Chagosians, he would also see that the people who have left this country and gone to the UK are allowed to continue and have a freedom of choice, that they are not reshipped back, possibly, this time, double jeopardy. This is why the question was asked.
No, there's no issue. What double jeopardy? I said anyone who has a Mauritian nationality will be able to go back. So, what is the issue?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will Prime Minister state whether prior to Britain entering into preliminary negotiations with Mauritius, whether Britain has agreed in principle to relinquish sovereignty over Chagos Archipelago?
Well, prior to negotiations, I don't understand, I don't know where, let me answer. You put a question, did I interrupt you? You are sitting on what, odds? I have not seen anywhere any statement from, I must say at least, either former prime ministers or actual prime minister of UK, where they have stated that they are going to relinquish sovereignty. I have not seen that. Maybe the honourable member should tell me when, where has been publicised that UK is, even before negotiation, that they will relinquish sovereignty. In fact, sovereignty, this is one of the issues where I have said earlier to Honourable Leader of the Opposition, a fundamental issue to us, Mauritius, that because we have already had a judgment, the judgment is clear, crystal clear, and therefore sovereignty for us is a fundamental issue.
Merci. Le Premier ministre s'est posé plusieurs questions sur le resettlement, compensation, accès à l'archipel, etc. Ne pense-t-il pas que la seule à pouvoir répondre à ces interrogations est la communauté chagosienne? Parce que le Premier ministre avait affirmé au début de sa réponse que la composition des délégations pourrait changer de temps à autre. Le Premier ministre peut-il donner la garantie que la communauté fera partie de toute délégation concernant toutes les négociations?
Monsieur le Président, contrairement à ce qui se passait auparavant sous le gouvernement travailliste, il n'y avait jamais eu non seulement de consultation, mais les Chagosiens ne formaient pas de partie de délégations qui ont été ailleurs. Ah, reste tranquille. He's no good. He's no good. He's no good.
Hey, you don't have the right. Oh, you don't have the right to talk. Let the honourable member put the question. Order. Order! Order! If you want to stay in the House, order. You're going too far.
You continue with your reply.
member of the opposition, I heard him say that the Prime Minister is lying. And then he said he's misleading the House. No, you said misleading afterwards.
Even misleading.
You said lying.
Is
Please, you must
more
withdraw
serious
that.
than lying, you see? So apologize to the House.
I apologize in
Okay.
the name of
Okay.
in
you
the name of all
Okay,
our
whatever.
Chagosian friends. Yeah.
Whatever, you apologize to the House without any conditions.
Good. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I was saying that, par contre, nous, lorsque on a été aux Nations Unies, les Chagosiens ont été partie de la délégation aux Nations Unies. Et d'ailleurs, on a fait une exhibition aux Nations Unies pour conscientiser davantage tous les pays membres. Lorsqu'on a fait le survey pour qu'on puisse faire un rapport technique concernant notre cas de délimitation du territoire maritime entre Maurice et Maldives, les Chagosiens ont formé partie de cette délégation. Ils sont allés sur Perros-Banos, sur Salomon, Blenheim Reef, librement, sans être escortés par les Britanniques. Et jamais il y avait eu auparavant. Hein. Mais par contre aussi, Monsieur le Président, je tiens, comme moi maintenant, auparavant, Sanirou Jagnat, comme Premier ministre, et moi je le fais régulièrement, on a des consultations, on donne, bien sûr, on est en train de brief les Chagosiens, et on est en consultation.
Voilà donc une private notice question très importante à l'Assemblée nationale. Il concerne donc les Chagos, le projet de resettlement de ben Chagosiens, l'archipel des Chagos, ben négociation avec le gouvernement britannique. Comment je te connais, Maurice fin donc enregistré une victoire très importante dans la lutte pour récupérer les Chagos. Finina donc le jugement de la Cour internationale de justice et surtout le verdict du tribunal de la mer qui délimite le territoire des Chagos et il dit que Maurice est le seul pays qui a la souveraineté de l'archipel des Chagos et là nous pécos de tout l'archipel des Chagos y compris Diego Garcia. Et le verdict du tribunal de la mer, les final et les binding, pas capable de challenge ça gisement-là. Alors maintenant, la PNQ du leader de l'opposition, lui, a envie qu'on ait que fin arrivé avec les négociations avec le gouvernement britannique et ce qui est capable de connaître quand ça va une discussion-là, ça va une négociation-là pour prendre fin. Alors là, le Premier ministre fin d'abord dire qu'il y a un service à Mola, we are making progress. Et à un moment donné, il dit we are making tremendous progress. Donc, il paraît que le Premier ministre est satisfait avec l'état des négociations avec la partie britannique, mais il dit qu'il n'est pas capable de donner un time frame, il n'est pas capable de donner une date comme une discussion pour prendre fin. Et il dit qu'il a la même question finit posée au House of Commons en Angleterre par Jeremy Corbyn. Et là-bas aussi, le gouvernement britannique, le Premier ministre, dit qu'il n'est pas capable de donner une date, combien de temps ça peut prendre. Et il dit qu'il pourra bientôt un prochain round of discussions, pourra un nouveau round de négociations avec la partie britannique. Xavier Duval ensuite vient Diego Garcia. Et le Premier ministre dit que quand nous pécons souveraineté également le Diego Garcia. Xavier Duval rappelle qu'il est dans la base militaire américaine, le Diego Garcia, et ce qui est dans une négociation qui peut faire avec les parties concernées pour que Maurice gagne une compensation concernant d'abord le rent, le Diego Garcia, mais aussi capable d'un casse pour qu'il ben Chagosien capable à l'établir l'archipel des Chagos. À un moment donné, Xavier Duval dit que d'après ce calcul, il y a au moins 50 milliards de roupies. Le Premier ministre dit qu'il prend bonne note de sa proposition-là, mais il dit we are not there. Pas encore arrive l'eau compensation qui pour bien négocier avec les parties concernées. Le rapport du KPMG a été mentionné par le leader d'opposition et le Premier ministre. Et Xavier Duval dit qu'il n'est pas capable de dépenser tout ça qu'à ça pour reloger seulement 150 Chagosiens, bizarre au moins 1500 Chagosiens. Mais le Premier ministre dit qu'avant qu'il nous cause de combien de dimoun qui pourra reloger, qui peut faire là-bas, donc il y a une assessment mission qui bizarre faire. Il dit que le gouvernement mauricien peut organiser pour bientôt une nouvelle visite de l'archipel, il appelle ça une assessment mission pour le guetter, qui est une infrastructure qui peut bien. Il dit le rapport KPMG cause d'une piste d'atterrissage qui peut bien construire le Chagos, un jetty, un jeté, ce qu'on appelle un harbor facilities pour que les bateaux capable accoster. Tout ça là pour bien algueter. Leader de l'opposition, il cause le relogement de la partie est de Diego Garcia. Il peut dire que ça bien fait là-bas. Pravin Jagnat dit qu'il ne pas encore arrive à ça stade-là. Xavier Duval, fin envie connaît ben Chagosien qui a la double nationalité, surtout ben Chagosien qui est établi en Angleterre. Est-ce qu'ils sont pour capables d'être relogés le Chagos? Pravin Jagnat dit que tout Chagosien qui n'a pas passeport mauricien sont pour capables donc gagner accès l'eau Diego Garcia et ceux qui ont envie de rester là-bas, capable de rester là-bas, il cause de ben Chagosien qui n'a pas passeport mauricien. Et il dit que nous, ben Mauriciens, nous aussi, bien sûr, nous sommes capables d'aller au Chagos, à visiter les Chagos, éventuellement, quand fini, donc récupérer officiellement la souveraineté et quand finit mettre toute ben facilité, ben infrastructure sur place. Arvin Boulel fin demander si le gouvernement britannique fin agréé en principe pour que Maurice retrouve sa souveraineté de Chagos. Est-ce qu'il y a une déclaration de principe là? Pravin Jagnat répond, dit en tout cas, il n'y a pas de contraire à l'heure qu'il est, il n'y a pas aucun statement public qui démontrait le contraire. Oriane Avant-Marie, la députée MMM, qui elle-même est d'origine chagosienne, lui fin demander si la communauté chagosienne pour faire partie de une délégation pour faire partie de une négociation avec la partie britannique. Premier ministre Pan répond directement à la question précise d'Ariane Avant-Marie. Est-ce qu'ils vont faire partie de la délégation? Premier ministre dit qu'il est en contact permanent avec la communauté chagosienne et il peut briefer l'état de l'avancement des négociations. Voilà donc Jagdish, un échange qui finit entre Pravin Jagnat et Xavier Duval, la question des Chagos, c'est une question d'intérêt national, une question très très importante. Et nous-mêmes, Jagdish, aux journalistes depuis bien longtemps, est-ce que tu pourrais réaliser qu'un jour, dans un studio, nous vous discuter le relogement des Chagosiens, le Chagos, ça a démontré qu'il parcourt différents gouvernements, mais bizarre de reconnaître que ce gouvernement, MSM, avec Xavier Jagnat 2014, fin faire un progrès remarquable, nous allons dire historique, la lutte pour retrouver la souveraineté, surtout ça désisement donc qui finit là, ça c'est ben appelé en anglais ben landmark judgment. Et là, Zodi, nous sommes capables de discuter maintenant le relogement de ben Chagosien, le Chagos, c'est un énorme progrès qui finit accomplir donc pour retrouve la souveraineté le Chagos.
De Maurice sur les Chagos. Alors, c'est-à-dire déplacé des Chagos de après 1965, ils étaient très nombreux, mais aujourd'hui paraissent beaucoup qui sont dans la nationalité mauricienne. La plupart, ils préfèrent établir en Angleterre, ils choisir la nationalité britannique. C'est là la question de Xavier Duval. Et le Premier ministre très précis, seulement Mankina, la nationalité mauricienne, qui pourrait un droit, donc pour les établir, retourne au Chagos. Ça, c'est une autre question, mais surtout qui sont les Chagosiens. Là, ils déjà peut travailler en Angleterre et ils fin plus ou moins être reconnus. Alors, il y a deux aspects qui sont importants dans sa question-là. Un, c'est-à-dire sur le plan légal, une procédure légale avancée qui nous fait depuis 2014. Et avant ça, Finena, parce que Xavier Duval, il mentionnait que Philippe Sands, le représentant légal dans les négociations, s'est nommé en 2010. Donc, Finena, une procédure qui finit accomplie. Et ça, il est qualifié par Pravin Jagnat, comme on rappelle, tremendous, fantastic progress on legal procedures.
Fantastique, c'est Xavier Duval qui nous savait, c'est pas Pravin Jagnat.
Oui,
Pravin Jagnat cause de tremendous progress.
oui.
Ouais.
Alors, et là, le Premier ministre peut dire que ce progrès-là finit accompli parce qu'il y a d'abord la Cour internationale de justice qui nous prononce en faveur de Maurice, les Nations unies et ensuite le Tribunal international de la mer qui finit situer nos territoires par rapport aux Maldives. Mais seulement l'autre aspect, c'est négociation qui est en cours. Premier ministre indien, négociation a commencé avec la Grande-Bretagne en novembre 2022, un deuxième tour en janvier 2023, février 2023 et ensuite, là récemment, le 3 juin. Mais seulement les prochaines négociations pas encore fixées, puis attendent exactement quand le gouvernement britannique pour donner une date. Et il rappelle qu'il évoque la question avec le Premier ministre actuel, monsieur, c'est-à-dire de la Grande-Bretagne, le Premier ministre Sunak. Mais seulement, concernant les négociations, il dit « issues not simple
Ouais,
and straightforward ».
Il est complexe.
It is a very complex issue. Nous retournons dans une situation que beaucoup de gouvernements ont trébuché à la fin. Quand arrive le moment que bizarre, c'est-à-dire la Grande-Bretagne, l'Amérique qui est en dehors, bizarre assume cette responsabilité, donc arrive à un accord, là où trouver les négociations butées.
Bon, mais sauf la différence fondamentale cette fois-ci, Jagdish, c'est que Maurice est dans sa désisement
international
désisement international, donc la Cour internationale de justice et aussi le tribunal de la mer. Auparavant, pas dans ça. Et là, le gouvernement britannique est sous énorme pression
internationale.
Parce que la Grande-Bretagne, il dit qu'il est champion de la démocratie, il respecte les droits humains, il est sous international scrutiny, et là, il n'est pas capable de permettre de faire tenir un double langage, parce que le monde entier peut regarder l'île là. Et je pense, moi, que le gouvernement britannique, tôt ou tard, pour bien faire un compromis, et pour bien trouver un accord avec la partie mauricienne.
Oui, ce qui explique une négociation que l'Angleterre a accepté de faire, alors qu'avant, ça m'a un jugement au niveau international. Là, il y a beaucoup de réticence, de laisser aller, c'est-à-dire, Maurice, tu peux taper l'épée dans 10 lots. Nous sommes capables de dire, pas finalement, beaucoup l'intérêt au niveau du gouvernement britannique, mais là, nous retrouvons dans cette situation coûte vraiment une avancée et une bonne possibilité pour un accord. Et c'est là que Xavier Duval sur question concernant compensation, location qui peut-être nous mériter pour ça. Et nous pensons, c'est là que la question peut aller en ce moment, ma discussion en cours, c'est-à-dire qui compensation Maurice est capable de gagner. Puis il mentionne un chiffre de 50 milliards, un moment de 15 milliards d'un rapport de KPMG pour réhabiliter les Chagossiens, alors gouvernement mauricien, n'importe quel gouvernement, celui-ci ou après, donc pour besoin capable d'obtenir un loyer pour c'est-à-dire concernant la base de Diego Garcia, et Premier ministre peut dire, pas peut contester, et c'est-à-dire l'importance ou l'existence de la base de Diego Garcia occupée par un Américain, mais seulement tout autour, c'est les Chagos, c'est là que les importants qui van Chagossiens retourner.
Voilà pour cette PNQ de Spirit Jagdish. Avant nous... Enfin, surtout, avant qu'on retraite comme journaliste, nous trouvons Ben Chagossien être relogé au Chagos et qui nous, comme journalistes, nous capables de faire une visite au Chagos, un Chagos qui est sous contrôle total officiel de la République de Maurice. Donc, c'est pour un grand moment d'émotion et enfin, surtout les Chagossiens, mais aussi pour nous, les Mauriciens, hein, parce que la façon que tu détaches Chagos avec Maurice et le combat qui ben plusieurs dimoun pas juste ben différents gouvernements mais il y a plusieurs militants des droits de l'homme qui finissent
Constamment, continuellement.
qui finissent continuer sa combat là.
Oui.
Et nous espérer qu'il trouve la lumière au bout du tunnel.
Oui, et pour les Africains, c'est la dernière colonie africaine qui reste à être libérée. Alors, on peut lire ça ce matin même. Au niveau de l'Afrique, on peut penser et qualifier la dernière colonie britannique en Afrique. Alors, donc, les Chagos. Et, oui, après 65 ans, nous pouvons suivre, me rappelle un discours c'est Abdul Razak Mohamed. Après l'indépendance, aux Nations Unies, quand les Diman les restituer, les Chagos. Ensuite, l'Inde fin jouer un rôle important avec la proclamation de l'océan Indien zone de paix dans les années 70-75, fin toujours solidarise avec Maurice pour qu'il nous retrouve la souveraineté, qui restitue les Chagos au territoire mauricien, mais tout ça pas fin abouti. Et on trouvait ce matin, les Chagos est composé d'environ une soixantaine de petites îles. Alors, il y a certaines îles qui sont assez grandes.
65 à peu près.
Oui, 65, alors une soixantaine. Et c'est Diego Garcia qui est la plus importante. Il y a aussi, les restes, c'est la côte bansagosien capable, possiblement...
Oui, mais là, pour vous mettre en place une infrastructure, ça a beaucoup de milliards de roupies. Et c'est là que vous avez du Val, Pédia, qui peut bien négocier
avec le gouvernement anglais.
Vous avez une infrastructure de base, hein? Donc la route, une facilité, une aménité de base, vous avez une connexion Internet.
Et le Premier ministre mentionne peut-être un airstrip, c'est-à-dire l'aéroport, également une jetty, c'est-à-dire une genre et pour bateau rentrer sortir, une genre de la rade, une sorte de port à l'intérieur. Donc tout ça, et le Premier ministre rappelle que le gouvernement anglais est en disposition pour aider. Il y a aussi les autres pays qui ont envie et amènent notre contribution dans sa développement qui nous a prévoir au niveau des Chagos.
Par contre, nous avons fait l'émission en direct des Chagos. Nous deux ensemble.
Oui, surtout, nous pouvons dans le même bateau.
Inch'Allah.
Oui, il y a également 18 questions qui sont adressées au Premier ministre. Et première question, c'est Dr Faradomir qui pose et Pravin Jagnat, le saisie, quantité la drogue qui fait une saisie. Et la monnaie aussi, également pour Special Striking Team, depuis sous l'entrée en service. Et combien l'argent fin retourné à ban suspect parce qu'il y a un case, pas fin donc logé en cours, pas fin aucune poursuite. Ensuite, les autres questions concernent l'accident qui nous trouvait peut continuer, le nombre de victimes de juillet 2021 à juin 2023. Il y a aussi la question d'acquisition avion par la compagnie Air Mauritius.
Voilà, vous êtes capable de continuer à suivre les travaux parlementaires au site Défi Média. Merci, à bientôt.